I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is how to have a fulfilling sexual relationship. Well, too long didn't read. The way to have a fulfilling sexual relationship is to partner with someone who has more or less the same libido as you do. This is something that generally doesn't change. You can do all the therapy you want, you can have all the conversations you want, but if somebody wants sex significantly more than the other partner, that is probably not going to work out in the long term. One or both of those partners are going to be frustrated with whatever negotiated compromise or tacit agreement they hit upon. So the way to have a fulfilling sexual relationship is to choose someone who is interested in having sex more or less the same amount you are, and who ideally has worked through whatever baggage he or she might have around sex and physical intimacy. Because boy, do people have baggage around those things. Now, contrary to popular belief, it's not always the fact that men have a higher libido than women do. It can absolutely be the other way around. However, I would say that in general, men want sex more often than women do. With men, sex is a drive. With women, sex is a mood. A drive is a relentless impetus to action. A mood is something that kind of comes and goes. All right? So in general, men want sex more than women do. So if there is a frustration in a sexual relationship, it's usually because the man wants more sex than the woman does. Not always, but generally. So how do you navigate this? Guys, if you want to have a fulfilling sexual relationship with a woman, you have to establish consequences early on in the relationship. It is much harder to do this further down the road due to the presence of established reinforcement protocols and likely explicitly negotiated commitments. It's possible, but it's much harder, so much better to start early. And what exactly do you do? Well, wanting sex from a woman who is not in the mood is kind of like showing up at your favorite restaurant a minute after they close. Like, let's say they serve until 8 p.m. and you show up at 8:01. And when you walk in the door, they say something like, "Oh, so sorry, but we're actually closed. Our kitchen is closed. So please come back tomorrow." Now, just like in a romantic relationship, if you were in this situation in real life, it would be absolutely ludicrous and entitled to insist that you be served. It's only a minute after closing time, but it is technically after closing time. Whether it's an inch or a mile out of bounds is out of bounds. And expecting that an exception is going to be made for you is a little narcissistic and absurd. That said, it would be just as ludicrous and entitled for the restaurant to expect that you're not going to eat until tomorrow just because their kitchen is closed. So what do you do in this real life situation? You say, "Oh, absolutely, completely understand. Enjoy the rest of your night. I'm going to see what else is open at this hour, and I'll come back another time." And you take your hunger where people are willing to serve you. It's that simple. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, please consider sending this episode to someone who might benefit from its message. It's word of mouth referrals like this that really help the channel to grow. You can also hit the super thanks button and tip me in proportion to the value you feel that you derived from this video. I appreciate your support. Now, I get where women are coming from. Having sex when you're not in the mood is kind of like eating when you're not hungry. Food just doesn't seem very appetizing. But turning down a man's advances doesn't diminish his desire. Just like saying your kitchen is closed doesn't make that customer's hunger disappear. All it does is communicate that he will need to go elsewhere for satisfaction. And while no one would bat an eyelash at a diner eating dinner elsewhere, the idea that a man would not just sit there and be hungry if her kitchen is closed tends to give some women pause. Why? Well, let's go back to the restaurant metaphor. There is a difference between some random dude who shows up at 8:01 expecting to be fed and a good, regular customer who shows up at the same time. The one is not equivalent to the other. In both cases, the restaurant loses the profit on one meal, but in the latter case, it potentially jeopardizes the profit on an indefinite number of future meals. Now, let's be real. That restaurant probably is not going to go out of business if that one regular customer takes his money elsewhere. But in general, it's not wise to alienate your regular customers. So if a woman is liking a man, if she likes his attention, if she likes his lifestyle, if she likes his affection, and he is now considering taking his sexual appetite elsewhere, not in a hurt or vindictive way, but in the measured and rational way a hungry customer would look for a place to eat at dinner time, then she has to consider the possibility that he is going to take all those other things with him. And this will give many women pause, and they might start to think, well, it is a minute after closing time, but it is only a minute after closing time. Maybe we can make something work. In fact, maybe I can get even more out of you, like a big tip, by making it seem like he's a special exception to my usual business practices. So in the early stages of relationship, this is the leverage that men have. You cannot force a restaurant to serve you. If they are closed for business, that's the way it is. However, you can absolutely take your business elsewhere. And if you exercise this option, you should do so in a completely non-petulant way. Like, hey, totally respect your decision. That's fine. But I got to do something about this, so I'm going to head out. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll get together some other time. Just like in the legal system, precedents have meaning in relationship. And especially early on in the courtship process, one of the many things that the two of you are doing is tacitly negotiating the price of sex. Guys, there is nothing wrong with just cuddling up to your lady if she turns down a bid for sex. However, don't be surprised if you're having much less sex than you would like to further into the relationship. This is because you've basically communicated that the same degree of attention, affection, lifestyle, and commitment can be secured with less sex, which makes sex a more valuable relative commodity in that relationship. And I say in that relationship because no matter what time of day it is, there is generally a restaurant open somewhere. And the price of food on the open market is a more accurate reflection of its true value than the menu prices at any particular restaurant. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've gotten this far, you might as well like this episode and subscribe to this channel. You may also consider becoming a channel member with perks like priority review of comments or booking a paid consultation. As always, thank you for listening.